I'm Sam Morrow. I was brought up on a farm in County Fermanagh. I'm in my 87th year. I was educated in the county, and after university in Belfast, I worked for 6 years in the Department of Agriculture in County Antrim, and then was posted back to County Fermanagh, and I spent the rest of my career in the civil service in the Department of Agriculture in County Fermanagh. The farm that I grew up on was a mixed farm. There were dairy cows. It had some beef cattle. It had pigs. It had hens. It had turkeys. And it had crops like potatoes and oats in particular. Fodder was saved as hay during the winter, and that all has changed in my lifetime. Now there are very few cropping areas in County Fermanagh. It's all largely grassland based, and it has intensified beyond recognition. When I grew up on the farm, there were lots of curlews on part of the farm, which is a roughish area. I remember going to school and finding yellowhammer's nests, and there were grey partridge there, and all those are a thing of the past, largely speaking. Well, the bird that I remember most distinctly was the curlew, because in the breeding season they're very protective of their nests. I can still see them coming in, and they'd go off and make their usual cry, of course. It was very, very, very romantic, the whole thing. Well, I think what has been described here today at this conference is all very important, that whenever birds are on the decline, every effort must be made to preserve them and create the right environment for them and habitat and so forth, and to protect against predators. Whenever numbers get down, predators become much more significant in terms of the population, so it's important that they are controlled as well. Farmers have to get a living, and how they farm is driven by what the market offers and what the opportunities are in the marketplace. And farms are getting more intensive, obviously driven by economics, and I can't see any change in that. So it'll be at the margins where these things like curlews are preserved, such as was happening here on the fringes of Lough Erne. I don't see how you could ever go back to what we were at, because people have a certain expectation and standard of living, and you need levels of production and so on, levels of efficiency in a competitive world, and you need to be good at producing the food that that is in demand, and you're in competition with other people, and there's no alternative other than to be efficient, and that means size, that means intensification. Unless government steps in and provides funding to encourage less intensive farming and to cater for these particular habitats and so on, that's the only alternative. But if commerce is left to itself, things will intensify, and farmers they'll obviously do whatever produces the reasonable income for them, because farmers need an income comparable to other people as well, and there's only one way to do that, and it's to farm intensively. I'm a keen angler. Getting a bit past it for going to the loch now, but did a lot of fly fishing in the loch. I still fish for salmon. Not on the Erne, on the foil system. I had some success this year, but again, salmon numbers, like other things, they're on the decline, like wildlife generally, they're in decline. But there's still a few fish about, and most of them are returned now, of course, to breed again. So it's just for sport purposes. I've caught one salmon in the Ballymallard River, which is a tributary of the Erne, and some years ago, but I haven't been there since. At one stage, the Erne system was one of the best salmon fisheries in Europe, but with the hydroelectric scheme and other pressures coming on, it has declined very significantly. Lough Erne fishes, it varies from year to year. Some of the best fishing ever I've had, and I've been angling for 50 years. One of the best, or a couple of the best years we ever had on our mayfly fishing was on Lough Erne in the early 90s. Really superb fishing. And it's up and down, and I was chairman of the board of directors of a fish breeding farm for trout, for native Lough Erne trout. The trout in Lough Erne are specific to Lough Erne. We had them genetically tested and reproduced those fish. We were particularly interested in breeding the Lough Erne trout. It had been stocked following salmon disease back a few years ago. It decimated the trout stocks, and there were relatively few of the native Erne fish left. We had them genetically tested. We were able to identify the native Erne trout and bred from those specifically, and then restocked the Erne with the intention that we would bring the Erne system back to its original in terms of fish stocks. And that was very successful. A group of anglers set it up. We managed to get funding through a variety of sources, and with very close cooperation from Fermanagh County Council, who were very helpful and very supportive of the whole project. And that ran well, but we were depending largely on funding from the Department of Agriculture through their fisheries division, and that they were obviously under pressure, and they decided that fish hatcheries were no longer in favour and that it served its purpose. It finished about 5 or 6 years ago, and it ran for most of 20 years, a 20-year period. And it was at Marble Arch Hatchery.